All right, Matt. We are going to go back to the 80s and 90s and maybe even the 50s today.
Ooh, my favorite, except for the 50s.
What? Anyway, today we have our friend Andrew on the show. Andrew has a podcast called Auto Off Topic. He's going to tell us about the Radwood car show that he's been to a few times. It's a new big thing that's happening around the country. After that, we're going to talk about a little engine known as the Poly engine that Chrysler made in the 1950s.
Polyurethane?
Nope.
Okay.
Then I guess you have an announcement?
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to hear that, Matt.
You're going to have to.
Great. So let's get started. Engine Noise Podcast is brought to you by oneiauto.com. Quality car parts that ship quickly and come with thousands of free online videos that walk you through your installs. With One Auto, you can save a bunch of money and feel empowered by repairing it yourself. oneiauto.com. Hey, welcome to the Engine Noise Podcast for do-it-yourselfers like me who don't mind getting their hands completely dirty. I am your car guy, Jeremy Nutt.
And I'm Matt. And I don't mind getting my hands a little dirty. I also don't mind talking cars with you, Jeremy.
Oh, that sounds nice, Matt.
Yeah, so let's get right into it.
All right, Matt. So we have Andrew on the show today. He is a friend of ours.
Sure is.
He's worked on cars for a long time. He's a car enthusiast.
Yep.
And he's got his own podcast with his friend Brad.
What's it called?
Auto Off Topic. Could you tell us a little about it?
It's basically me and my friend Brad, and we've been friends for almost 30 years now. And we just talk about cars. Our favorite thing, we joke that we've had a lot of luck buying $800 cars.
Nice.
And we talk a lot about those cars. And then we've had some other random cars. It's usually stuff from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's like kind of our space for enthusiast cars.
So, Andrew, let me hear about Radwood. I heard you went to that recently, and you've been there in the past as well. What's Radwood all about?
Radwood is a car show for 80s and 90s cars. We found out about it through a couple other podcasts, and those guys run it. They're called Driving While Awesome and Clutch Kick, and then the journalist Bradley Brownell. So they started this car show for 80s and 90s cars. It was only like a year ago.
Yeah.
And they had this idea to have this little car show, and it was in San Francisco area. And it was super cool, and everybody out here and a bunch of people over the internet were like, please come to my city, please come to my part of the world. So it was so popular for the first one. They did another one in December of 2017. I think it was December 2nd. I said to my friend Brad, who's really into cars, I was like, hey man, you want to take a trip to LA for the weekend? Because that's not weird or crazy.
To go to a car show
Yeah.
that's 1980s cars only?
Yeah. My wife was down with it, so we booked a flight and then went to the show the next day.
That does sound rad.
Yeah.
So the guys who run this show, they must be completely blown away at how fast it has grown. It has expanded exponentially, though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
From what I've seen on the internet, it seems like it's a pretty big deal now.
It is. So it went from being just in California to they did one at Roan, Atlanta, and then they recently did one in Philadelphia.
And you've gone to how many now? 3?
I've gone to the one in LA. I drove to the one in Road Atlanta,
Which
Georgia,
is Georgia? Okay.
and we drove to the one in Philly too. So
Nice.
yeah.
Now, I vaguely recall that when you went to the one in LA, didn't you borrow somebody's car or something weird like that?
Oh, the cool thing about the LA one, so our friend Bradley Brownell picked us up at the hotel to go over there.
Yep.
And he picked us up in the Million Mile Lexus.
Yeah, see, I had never even heard of that until I heard you talking about it on your podcast.
Yeah.
What is the Million Mile Lexus?
So there's another big automotive YouTuber, Matt Farah, the Smoking Tire.
Ah, yes. Yep.
He bought this, I think it's a 96 Lexus LS400, which are known to run for like ever.
Yep.
And he bought it with like 950,000 miles on it or something.
Because why wouldn't you buy a car?
Wow. Well, you would. You probably would.
Yeah.
And the goal was to get it to 1 million miles. So he literally just loans it to anyone who wants it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And you just
is
put miles on it.
Yeah.
Like almost anyone can drive it. And we didn't get to drive it, we did get to ride in it.
That's cool.
And it is what you'd expect a car that has nearly 1 million miles on it to be like. It's not that
Nice.
great. It's a little
Yep.
rough. Runs okay. Uses some fluids. But
Yep.
it was just cool to say that, hey, this thing that I heard about on the internet,
Right.
and then I got to ride in it in real life. So
That's cool. So how many miles did it have on it when you were in it?
I think it was close to like 970,000 or something.
Wow.
Oh, it would have been so cool if you were there with the
Yeah.
millionth mile on it.
Yeah.
So who maintains this thing?
He does. He pays people to maintain it.
Really? Wow. That's
or
unreal.
whoever has it and if it breaks on them, they take care of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the deal, I guess.
So, what are some of the highlights of cars that you've seen at Radwood? Now that you've been to 3 of them, you've probably seen some pretty rad cars. Am I right, Matt?
Yeah.
So it's from 1980 to 99, right? That's the year range that the show includes. Let's say, I don't know, what are your top 5 that you've seen?
In Atlanta, there was an AMG Hammer wagon,
Whoa.
which is one of one.
Yep.
So the AMG Hammer, I think it was the mid. I'm not very good with old Mercedes. It was like the mid-size Mercedes at the time, and you'd buy it. They'd send it back to Germany for you, and then AMG, which was the tuning house of Mercedes at the time.
They were separate from
They
Mercedes
were
at
separate,
that point. Okay.
but you'd buy it from the dealer. They had a partnership. You'd send it back to them, I guess. Then they'd drop in a hand-built V8 that made like 300 and something horsepower, which at the time was a lot.
Yep.
And they do a couple of other modifications to it, and then you'd have this crazy fast car, and then this person, whoever bought it originally, decided to do it to a wagon.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and this was the only one. You know, in 1980s dollars, it was a couple $100,000 to do this.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
You have to really love wagons to spend that kind of money on a wagon.
That's a lot of money.
I wonder what it's actually worth right now. If he was to put it up for sale, like let's say he takes it to Barrett Jackson, I don't know. Do you have a guess at what something like that might be worth?
I feel like I was told in the 400,000s maybe.
Wow. So it's a good investment.
Yeah.
All right. So what else do you see?
There's always lots of DeLoreans.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're talking 1980s. So
Yeah. I mean-
all the DeLoreans come out of the woodwork at that point.
It's pretty much standard fare that somebody's going to show up in a DeLorean and
Yeah.
somebody will dress as Marty McFly, which is cool.
Right.
We all like that movie.
Do they make them all up like the Time Machine?
I haven't seen one made up like the Time
Oh,
Machine,
really?
actually. They're just kind of regular DeLoreans. But if you go to LA, not to get too off the rails here, and you go to the Peterson Automotive Museum, they do actually have the hero car from the movie on
Wow.
display
Nice.
that was restored.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
awesome. And the doors open, and they got it rigged so it lights up, and
Wow.
they play the sound effects from it. Obviously, when you open a DeLorean door, it doesn't make that
The
cool noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really make that noise.
Yeah.
Probably makes like a creaking, horrible noise. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, what else did I see there? God, it's like so hard to keep track of how many cars are, because there's a lot.
Right.
They try to keep it so they get like the really amazing cars you had from that era, and then they also let in all the kind of cars you think were kind of mediocre, but you've
Yeah.
forgotten about. There's been some really nice K cars.
Right.
And, like-
Which seems like an oxymoron or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, this is a beautiful K car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like Jeep Wagoneers. You're like,
Right.
You don't really think of them, but you're like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't seen one in a long time, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So stuff like that.
So, guys, for those who don't know out there, I obviously know, but I want it to be clear what a K car is. If you could.
You know, Matt.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
want me to say?
Yeah.
No.
Can you tell
go
us
ahead.
about K cars a little bit?
You go ahead.
So K car is kind of the car that saved Chrysler in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was
that
like-
and the minivan.
Yep. And they're all kind of based on the same platform. The platform was the K, and they just kind of shared this engineering and made them cheaply. And they could make them into, what I think, coupes and sedans and
Yep.
minivans. It was Iacocca?
I think it was Iacocca who did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like if you picture a car from the 80s, like let's say you watch a movie from the 80s.
Do all the time.
In the background, there's nothing but K cars.
All right. So Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah.
Mr. Rooney.
Yeah.
And he's got the vanity plate that says Rooney.
Rooney.
That's a K car.
Yeah. So it's
That's what he
like
drives.
LeBarons, New Yorkers.
I mean, yeah, I knew that. But,
Of course you knew that.
but everybody's saying, ah.
Right. And you could even get some cool ones. Like they made a LeBaron convertible with wood grain and a 2.2 turbo.
Whoa.
Which is pretty rad.
Nice.
If you know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
So, Andrew, I remember you saying something about some Ferraris that were in the most recent show.
It was a 348 convertible.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you don't see those too often. And then there's like this Mercedes 500 SL with a Koenig body kit.
Aren't they a wheel maker?
Yeah, but in the 80s they made body kits, and they'd put them on like supercar. They're like it's like a Testarossa body kit on this car.
Weird.
So it's like super wide body, and it's got
Yep.
those Testarossa rakes. Very
Yes.
80s looking.
Right.
Car was like dark maroon with tan leather.
Huh.
Just totally wild looking car.
Yeah. Whenever I think about those Testarossa kits, I always think of Mazda B2200 pickup trucks with like a Testarossa kit on the side
Yeah.
of it. And it just looks ridiculous.
Oh, that was another standout car we saw in LA. So it was a Testarossa, but it was in like a dark gray with red leather.
Oh, sweet.
Which I've never seen one like that. You always ever see them, they're like either white or red.
Yep.
But I've never seen a gray one, and that was really
that's
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Testarossas in general are pretty pretty cool to see. Because, I mean, it's not a car that you ever see out in the wild.
So you said that Radwood grew. Like, how big? How many cars? How many people?
I think the first one they told us, it was only a couple hundred cars, a couple hundred people, mostly their friends. And then at the last one, they had over 400, so 450 cars.
Oh, wow.
And they estimated around 3,000 people.
3,000?
That's crazy.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It exceeded their expectations for a East
for
Coast
sure.
show. They weren't sure like what they were going to get for cars out here. We're like, no. You're going to get good cars. Like, trust us.
Right.
Like, please
Yeah.
come out here and we'll show you what we can do.
All right. So on a scale of totally to super gnarly, where would you put the Rad Car Show? Super gnarly being the best, obviously.
Oh, it is 100% super gnarly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big statement.
It's worth it. For people of our generation, it's like kind of the car show for us.
All right.
And the other cool
like
thing,
that.
too, not only do you see a lot of cool cars, you are encouraged to come in your best 90s gear.
Oh.
I heard you like to wear
Genco's jeans?
Genco's?
Yeah. I've been known. Yeah, I've been on fire once or
So,
twice in those.
You can totally wear them and nobody will judge you for it.
Wow.
The deal has been sealed for Jeremy.
I'm not going to say I have a pair in my closet, but I might. I mean, I might have to get them out. I'll do it. Matt, are you ready?
I would love to see you in a pair of Genkos.
It's going to happen.
So you're saying we're planning a road trip, Jeremy?
I guess so. Do we have a 1980s car that we can take?
I'm sure you can scoop one up.
Andrew's probably got a few we can borrow.
Probably do. Maybe you guys could buy a cheap K car.
Ooh,
yeah.
It'd be like trains, planes, and automobiles.
Exactly.
You're going the wrong way.
So you guys work on your cars. Sometimes you get stuck, right?
Oh, yeah.
Every now and then.
So you gotta find a video. 1A Auto is the place to go. They're not like those other guys that do the vertical videos that are all blurry. There's no lighting. You can't see a thing. They already did the hardest part off camera. 1A Auto takes you step by step through the installation.
That is the worst when it's vertical and the lighting's terrible and the sound's not great.
Yeah.
And then they're like, all right, I'm going to work on this part and cut and it's out. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, what just happened?
Yeah.
Not at 1A Auto.
The mechanics at 1A Auto have 70 years of combined experience. So while you could watch the amateur videos on YouTube with the vertical shots and the terrible lighting,
I don't want to. Nope.
nobody does.
No.
1A Auto has the videos that you want to watch. They are way better than the other guys. So the next time you're working on your car and you need a little bit of assistance, just go to 1AAuto.com and you can watch the videos that will help you out and get the job done. 1AAuto.com, quality auto parts that ship quickly and come with thousands of free online videos that walk you through your installs. All right, so you mentioned there was BMX tricks at Radwood. Well, I have a little story to tell you that's actually going to get us right into our next segment about the 331 Poly engine. Are you sitting down?
Yeah, you're looking at.
Oh, yeah. Here's the deal. Not too long ago, I'm driving to work. You know how you're driving down the street sometimes and there's like free signs and it's like pile stuff?
I
And-
usually stop.
Exactly. So I'm driving by and there's a free pile and there's a BMX bike there.
Ooh.
And I'm like, well, I used to be a pretty big deal in the BMX community. I used to do some flatland stuff, spinning on my handlebars and whatnot. So I drove by. I ignored it. I was like, I don't need another BMX bike in my life because I still have one of mine from my youth.
Is this going to be like the Le Mans story? You just keep driving by every day and then finally
Yes.
somebody grabs it?
Exactly. So I drove by it the first time, drove by again, and I was like, I can't believe nobody's taking this BMX bike. The thing looks awesome. So I drive by again, drive by 6 times over 3 days. So finally, I can't take it anymore. I get out of the car, and I'm like, this thing is awesome. I grab the bike. Now, one of my friends is a bike expert. If there's anybody who knows more about bikes than this guy, I would be blown away. And I sent him a picture of it, and I was like, I just picked up this awesome bike. And he's like, does that have Z wheels on it? Man, I don't know what Z wheels are, but maybe. I check out the bike, it's got Z wheels. Can you believe it?
Okay, what are Z wheels?
Right? So they're plastic wheels that they would flex. So if you're racing this bike in the 1980s, they were like flexible wheels so you wouldn't break or bend a wheel. It would always just bend right back to be straight again.
Ooh.
Crazy, right? It's like
Never
NASA
heard of
type
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
So he's like, I got to have that bike. And I was like, I'm your guy. I'm going to give you the bike.
At a very good price.
Exactly.
From the free
No,
pile.
he offered me a lot of money for this bike.
Really?
And I was like, oh, I'm not going to take a lot of money from it because I just got it for free on the side of the road. So anyways, I go bring it to his house, and he starts showing me his bike collection. By the way, this bike ended up being a 1984 Ross MX Time that was in mint original condition. Mind-blowing. So for the BMX enthusiasts out there, that's what the bike was. It was totally rad. And it had the original padding on it and the original brakes, original wheels. Oh, so awesome.
Wow.
Anyway, so I bring it to his house, and he's showing me his bike collection. And I was like, well, what's back there? Behind all of the bikes was a 31 Ford truck with a engine in it. Mm-hmm. It hadn't been on the road since, we're thinking, at least 1961. It was his dad's truck, and it was so cool. Basically, he thinks the engine in it is a 331 poly engine, which I had heard of, but I had never really seen one or cared about them or thought about them because it's such kind of an oddball engine. So what I did was I went home and I was like, what the hell is a 331 poly engine? Because first I wanted to confirm that that's what it was.
Wait, Jeremy didn't know something about an engine?
I knew they existed, but I didn't know why they called them poly engines.
Okay.
Or like
Why
really
do they call
anything
them
about
poly
them.
engines?
Well, that's what I'm about to tell you.
Come on, Jeremy.
Okay, so I went home and I was like, well, first things first, I want to confirm that it's a poly engine. So I look it up because he didn't actually know what it was. He inherited it from his dad. His dad put the engine in the truck, and he didn't really know a whole lot about the truck. He's just had it for, 40 years or whatever. He told me he thinks it's a poly engine. So I look it up. Sure enough, it's definitely a poly engine. The poly engine is basically like an early-ish kind of Hemi engine, but it's not actually a Hemi head. The story is, in the 1950s, Chrysler started making Hemi engines. And Hemi engines were a big deal. They made tons of horsepower. Everybody wanted one. They won lots of races, and things were great. The problem was they were really expensive to make. And Chrysler didn't want to put all these super expensive engines in these cheap cars. So they wanted to sell you like a super cheap Plymouth with a super cheap V8 engine and kind of get you on your way and have a low-priced car with a V8 engine. So what they did was they made these poly engines, which is a simpler V8 engine with less parts, way cheaper to make, has less horsepower. They basically just shoved them in a bunch of Dodges, Plymouths, and Chryslers and DeSotos, and they sold them in cars from 1955 to 58. I guess technically they made them in all the way up to 1967 in trucks and things like that. But the cylinder head was different than a Hemi engine. In a previous episode, we talked about how a Hemi cylinder head is like an upside-down cereal bowl.
Hemispherical.
The poly head is like a half circle, but it's also flat on the top. I guess it's more like a cereal bowl, technically. So you cut your basketball in half, you put it on the table, but you flatten it off on the top. That is why they call it a polyspherical head. People also call them semi-hemis, because it's
It's kind of a
hemispherical,
Yeah.
but not really. It was a pretty cool engine from 55 to 58. After that, they made what's called an LA series engine, which is like when the small block Chrysler engines came out, which is 273s and 318s, 360s, 340s, 3 whatevers. But yeah, during this period in the 50s, they made this semi-Hemi engine, also known as a poly head engine, and it was kind of just a cool engine that kind of got forgot about for a long time. And this truck in my friend's garage has one in it. I just thought it was a really cool engine. The other fun fact about these is that apparently a lot of Hemi parts bolt onto these. So what guys used to do in the 1960s is they'd grab a polyspherical engine, because you could get them dirt cheap because nobody wanted them. And then you take your Hemi heads, you slap them on the poly engine, shoot some nitromethane in it, and boom, you get like a super fast race engine.
Wow.
And they're like throwaway engines, basically. Well, at the time they were.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't find Hemi engines because everybody wanted one.
Yeah.
But you could find poly engines all day long, every day.
It's like Legos.
Like Legos, yeah.
Slap them together. All
Pretty
set.
cool. So for the hot rodders out there, that's a little tip for you. Apparently you can get a poly engine. Well, I don't know if you can still get them, but apparently they're out there, and they're not super desirable, but Hemi parts bolt onto them, so.
Anywhere you see an excess of 250 bicycles, just go through those to the back, and you'll find one. Well, guys, speaking of the 80s and DeLoreans and all rad, awesome stuff, we're going back to the future.
Great Scott!
Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
I have an announcement.
Okay.
I think I want to do Uber.
Like you want to be an Uber driver?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I was thinking about it.
In the Dakota?
No, not in the Dakota. No.
I wonder if that would even be allowed.
Actually, there's rules.
You can't have
you need a 4-door There's a whole bunch of rules, but I know that at least that. It needs to be like an SUV or a coupe with 4 doors.
I wonder where an RX-8 would fall. RX-8
It can't have a wankle.
Okay. It has to be reliable. So, okay, RX-8s are out. So you want to be an Uber driver.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, I do have another vehicle besides the Dakota, and it's an awesome Nissan Rogue.
Can it go over 50 miles an hour?
Yeah, it's like a 0.1 liter, 30 horsepower.
I heard it vibrates a little bit. Is that
Yeah,
true?
see, that's the thing. If I can get that fixed, like, do you think it'd be worth it? Because now I'm starting to work on my own stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I can get my parts, do it myself.
I've heard
And
that...
if I get too far into something, you can help me, of course.
Right, or Andrew. You call up Andrew and
Or Andrew.
he'll be there.
I sure can.
He's the guy.
I think we got a good team to start a nice Uber operation here. You guys
Uber
fix my car.
We'll call it Uber Ops?
No.
Oh.
I have a whole game plan for
Oh,
this.
so you have a name for it?
Oh, yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm going to call it Lyft.
That's not a great idea, man.
Why?
Because that already exists.
No, Lift.
Oh, okay. That's a bad idea.
I know.
still.
No, they have another one out there. It's like
Okay.
Lyft or whatever. But
Yeah.
I want to call it Lyft
All
because
right.
it's going to be on my own time. So it's going to be like, oh, I'll give you a lift.
So are you going to contact people and be like, hey, you need a lift anywhere?
I'm just going to be like, here's where I'm going. It's going to
Okay.
go out on this app, right?
Yeah.
It's this whole thing, okay? And
Okay.
then they're going to be like, oh, alert. I'm going to be driving to the grocery store, and I'm going to be like, okay, I'll pick you up, give you a lift,
Yep.
and you can help me load my car with groceries, and I'll give you a discount.
So it's like the opposite of Uber, where you are going and maybe you'll pick somebody up.
Oh, yeah, it's at my convenience.
Huh.
Yeah. See, it'd be like a bargaining thing, and it'll be like an adventure every time. Like, hey, I'm going yard sailing. We're going to stop at least 2 yard sales for every yard sale we stop at.
Yeah.
I'll drop $250 off the bill.
I feel like if you say you're going yard sailing and you put up there on the interwebs that you're yard sailing it, you're going to get some friends really quick.
Yeah. People would want to lift.
People would definitely yard sail with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're an expert yard sailor.
I try, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Like that bike, that's a dream.
I
It's
know.
a dream come true right there.
Right. You can't
Free is the best kind of sale.
I know. And for 3 days in a row, nobody took
It's
the dang
ridiculous.
thing.
I can't believe you didn't stop the first day.
Well, I would have, but I was like, I don't need another bike. Like, what am I going to do with
Do you
another
think
bike? I'm
that
an adult.
guy that had the poly engine ever said,
No.
I don't need another bike?
No. He's never said that. Wow. I don't know if it's your best idea today, but it's a decent idea.
Okay, so I got more.
Oh, I thought that was the whole thing.
No, so it's
Okay.
it's about developing relationships with people, right? So
Hold on. You want to be their friend now?
yeah, well, I mean, if we're going to the grocery store, we're going to flea markets and stuff and yard sales, then why not have a chat, right? So
Is this a dating service?
No. Do you remember Taxi Cab Confessions?
Yeah.
So I want to record audio and then we can play it on the show. You know, at the end of the ride, I'll be like, oh, by the way, I'm on this podcast. Here's an Engine Noise t-shirt, and can I use this audio for the show?
Huh.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Sounds like a bad idea, Matt.
Why?
I've lost all interest at this point. I'm out. If this was Shark Tank, I would be out.
All right, Matt. I think this is a great idea, and I want to support you in it.
Yeah, thanks,
so,
man.
how about this? I could really use a ride home after the show.
Oh, no, I'm not going that way. Not today.
Bummer.
Sorry.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Engine Noise, a podcast brought to you by our awesome sponsor, 1AAuto.com, quality auto parts that ship free and have thousands of how-to videos that walk you through your installs. We also want to thank Andrew for being our awesome guest today. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
You want to say anything, Matt?
Oh, thank you.
Hey, how about that ride home?
Nah.
Damn.
Thanks to our producer, Jamie Prohaska, our editor, Patty Ford, and our Burnout Contest winner, Christian Hera.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome. You've never seen that much smoke come out of a Corolla unless it was on fire.
And if you haven't seen that yet, check it out on our social media. We'll have another great episode of Engine Noise drop in 2 weeks. Our show drops on the 1st and 15th of every month with a little bit of car news and coffee in between. Be sure to subscribe so that you'll be notified every time one of our episodes drops. And remember to like, follow, and share our show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Email us for help on your project car.
Help at EngineNoisePodcast.com.
Thanks again for listening, and until next time, continue to DIY.
Do it yourself.
Go on a podcast, talk about cars.
Wind up that Corolla and do a smoky burnout.
Pick up a BMX on the side of the road if it's free.
Write us a review and you can win a t-shirt.
Ask Matt for a ride home.
You might not get it.
you might not get an investor in your company, Matt.
You might not see the vision.
You might not have a good business plan, Matt. Ouch.
This Engine Noise podcast is brought to you by 1AAuto.com. Hit the subscribe button now so you'll know when a new episode drops. Have a question for Jeremy or Matt? Send us an email at help@enginenoisepodcast.com.
The people who have Volvos and like Volvos are like really into Volvos.
Yeah.
Big time. into
Yeah, I had a
Volvos.
friend in high school that had a Volvo, and he
Yeah.
was all about it.
It's like Fiero people. Whew. You get those Fiero enthusiasts. They really love their Fieros. I'm not saying they're a bad car, because I like a good Fiero.
Yeah?
But they're into it. Corvette people, Volvo people, Fiero people, Saab people. Saabs are big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, those Subaru people.
Subaru people.
Subi heads.
Always vaping everywhere. Vaping all their vapes.
Do you guys drive Subarus?
Maybe.
Of course, you had to point that out, Matt, didn't you?
You brought up the vaping thing.
I know.
If I had a dime for all the vape jokes,
I know.
I have a lot of dimes.
You
Lots
would.
of dimes.
Yep.